It's important that we don't just have ideas or desires and visions, but viability, aligned execution, and structural integrity. Without it, we'll accidentally build the same world right now that we hate. In this video, we'll talk about what makes your new Earth infrastructure plan solid, how to make it viable, and how to test if your ideas can actually hold reality. Hi, I'm Naomi Olotayo, the Brand Priestess, and I awaken founders and high-ranked leaders to their governance. Here we talk about new Earth infrastructure and realm-level system architecture. If this video activates you at all, I invite you to download my free audio transmission titled From Leadership to Governance, Recognizing Your Unclaimed Jurisdiction. That is the first step towards operating within your full capacity as the kind of new Earth leader or founder that you are. Are you actually committed to what you are building? Many people immediately jump to say yes. But then when you really look and you really pay attention, inside they doubt if it's even possible. Not because they don't believe in themselves, but because they recognize there are pieces missing for their infrastructure. When you look a little bit closer, you see that they ignore the nudge that are telling them that what they're building just isn't coherent. And then you realize that their vision and their plans are fulfilling a personal emotional need instead of the collective need. It's very easy to plan, to build a community, and to daydream about your impact. But to actually materialize it requires courage, audacity, and ruthlessness, which is making it real with real consequential inevitability. And even if you are past the threshold of inevitability where consequences are real, risk is real, power is real, authority is real, and actualize everything, even if you're past that, you've already gotten the structures, the institution, whatever. Is what you're building structurally sound enough to carry itself through expansion? That's the question. When you're saying, I am building the new Earth, what you're really saying is, I want reality to align with what I see, with my vision. And whether you are conscious or not, that vision is one of power, not control, but governance power. You're saying that I am building life to have a certain logic that differs from the present logic. That requires a lot more than an untested manifesto. Personally, I work with people who have passed the threshold of inevitability and consequence and have built something real and undeniable. Their work just isn't like a ungrounded concept. It's not just an idea, but it's an actual grounded, externalized something of what they're building. And even, like I said, even if you're at that point, even when they're at that point, there's often something I have to point out. Something that we all need to understand. There are laws that govern us. There are architectures of power that your manifesto, your blueprints, whatever, will be contending. There are also specifics about the nature of humanity as a collective and as the individual that need to be understood. And one thing I always have to point out is mapping the outcomes that you're looking to produce. It doesn't matter how vivid and zealous you are. That's the vision stage. That's the seed phase. I am not for blind execution. I'm also not for hope. I don't create strategies and I don't work with people who are hoping. Because at that point, the most impact you'll ever have is influence, which might be the exact kind of vision that you have. But typically for the people that come to my channel and work with me, their vision sits altitudes higher at the realm governing level. And that requires precision. And so what I'm saying, is your vision, your infrastructure, your blueprints, your manifesto viable? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, can this actually govern reality? Can this hold in reality? Or is this just kind of like a fantasy idea that riles people around you in hope, which if that's what you're going for, fine. But if you want to see your impact materialize, I want to pose to you these 4 questions that can help you gauge whether or not what you're building is viable. First one, are you self-governed? This question can be overlooked because it's easier to look outside of us than it is to look inside of us. But let me just say this. Your vision will always be unsound. Your execution will always be unsound if you yourself are not structurally sound. Expansion, money, power, and visibility amplifies what's already there. You create from what, who, and where you are. You think you're like the new Earth is going to come from your brain? No, it comes from you. Right now, this vision that you have, even if it's externalized as a community, as a movement, whatever, it's you. It is you right now. It doesn't exist outside of you because you're still externalizing it, circulating it, but you are the sole reference point of it right now. And so if you are incoherent with the kind of structure or outcome you're trying to produce, you're just going to produce the same outcomes that we have right now. Maybe not the same because you might not be that person, but if you don't have ownership of the origin, you lack control of the outcomes. And that is not a sustainable system. Vision without internal governance produces replication of the very system someone claims they want to replace. If the originator is fragmented, the system fragments. If the originator avoids self-confrontation, the system encodes avoidance. If the originator refuses law, the system resists law. That's just how it goes. Because again, you're not building from here, you're building from here. You know what I mean? It's gonna carry your DNA, your soul, your essence. What is that of you? Are you aware of that so that you're not accidentally encoding some kind of incoherence into the field that you're expanding? Question, can you govern yourself enough to govern anything else at scale? Because if you can't govern yourself, you likely will not govern at scale. And I have a video called System Reinforcers versus Realm Authors. I would like for you to watch that because this expounds on this point. Second question, have you built high-level alliances and covenant-based partnerships who have binded themselves to the outcomes you intend to produce? And are you the kind of leader who can lead them? One thing I see a lot is this mentality that if you build it, they will come. Oh, I got something in my eye. That works for community, but it does not work for high capacity stakes building. It does not work at all. And a lot of people kind of settle for a community when they were never meant to just build community. Community is an outcome. And a lot of you are building outcomes before you build what comes before the outcome, which if you watch the video I mentioned, Realm Authors versus System Reinforcers, you'll learn more. But the point is, the kind of people required to build something real, like disciplined, high capacity, sovereign contributors, they will not bind themselves to unstable leadership. Community will, because the point of community isn't leadership. It's support, it's reinforcement, but it's not obligated outcome producing. If you aren't a leader who can lead those kinds of contributors, you will not get that far. Your realm that you're building is only as strong as the covenant-based relationships that you're able to bind yourself to and properly maintain. These people will not maintain themselves with you and bind themselves to an outcome when moving forward with you is leading them into a fantasy. Typically, this forces them into like two positions when you're not the kind of leader that is able to lead them and you're not the kind of originating leader that has a vision strong enough for them to latch onto. Either they lower their standards to help and perform illusion, or they overfunction and compensate for the lack of governance. And this produces the same outcome that you run from. Think about it. Have you ever had a boss who was just ridiculous and they would blame you for the results of the team, but then when you really look at it, it wasn't your fault at all? They just didn't want to take accountability, but because you needed the money, you kind of stayed. It's kind of like that. These people, though, they don't have to work for you. A lot of these covenant-based relationships are people who will bind themselves to the outcome, where they make it their personal purpose and mission to produce the outcomes according to the vision that you have as an originator. Because a lot of people aren't originators. A lot of people are reinforcers of originators and what they're building. So it depends. But yeah, a lot of people just don't know how to hold that. You know what I mean? They don't know how to hold it. And so if one party treats a covenant as optional and the other one treats it as sacred, like if one person who is not the originator is like, I believe in what you're doing, we're going to get exactly the outcome that we are both seeing, because oftentimes, all the time, they will come and share this vision with you or have remnants or pieces of it, and they're like, oh, that's you, I'm going to get on board. But if they treat it as something for real and they take it more seriously and they kind of outpace you in leadership, you are putting them at a disadvantage for them to continue on with you. You're making them have to make a choice between abandoning themselves and choosing themselves. And honestly, these kinds of relationships are every new earth leader's downfall. The thing is, besides marriage, there is no other covenant. I know people might have little things here and there, like godparents, but even then it's usually informal. There's no formal and collectively recognized form of covenant. Even with let's say you have a boss or you have a job, it's not a covenant, it's a contract. It's an agreement, I guess. Maybe that's, depending on how you define it, it could be different, but the point is that a lot of people don't recognize those things as important, and they don't like to bind themselves, or they don't like to be accountable long-term to things. But I'm telling you, think of the greatest people. They have people who go to death for them. Why do you think men live longer when they have a wife? And they get more successful when they have a woman on their side? Behind every great man is a woman, because women offer that kind of loyalty that propels people forward. I'm not saying to use people. Of course, exercise reciprocity and honor and reverence, but I'm telling you, you're not going to build this thing with a community. That's not what a community is for. The third question is, have you understood the current architecture of power and the laws and principles that make up the realm that we're currently governed by? As brilliant as your plan is, if you haven't understood what you're contending, mapped out whose toes you're naturally stepping on, creating buffers around that, then you're setting yourself up to either compromise or have your structures completely just shut down. I always use stars in Hollywood as an example. Notice how you either become a one-hit wonder and never seen again, or you comply. And then for the few who find their own way, great, but typically you lose a lot of your autonomy and agency going the route given, because you're stepping on somebody's toes. Whose toes are you stepping on? What laws govern the area that you want to transform? If you don't know that, right now, your blueprints are not viable. The fourth question to understand if your blueprints are viable is this: are you jurisdictionally authorized to build what you're building? This goes into governance. And if you don't know what governance is, I have a playlist linked down below, but the video is the first one on the playlist and it's called What is Governance? There are some altitudes of impact that you just don't have access for. Like I was saying earlier, some impact or some visions start at an altitude higher than systems, communities, industries. It sits up here at the altitude of a realm. Some of you may only be called for impacting and changing specific industries or domains. Sometimes you may be desiring something that is above your jurisdiction. And sometimes you actually may be operating beneath your jurisdiction. Like for me, I wanted to change an industry, but come to find out that the kind of impact that I was created for was at the realm level. Neither is better than the other. It's not a hierarchy, it's an order. It's almost like maybe you have a license to practice law in New York and California, but you may not have a license in Florida. That's all it is. If you watch that playlist, it will explain more in detail. The point is to just align with your ontological function. We've all been given a purpose. We've all been given a function according to that purpose. It's your job to find that so you can match where you're supposed to operate in, because if you operate it above or below, there'll be a lot of friction. As you're building, remember, make it inhabitable. Don't rely on hope. Make it viable and make it inevitable. You didn't have the vision for no reason. Let's make it real. If you do have a new Earth infrastructure that you would like for me to audit, you can submit your manifestos, your documents, whatever you have, under the new Earth Infrastructure Audit linked down below. We'll make sure that your plans are viable and inevitable, and of course, structurally sound. In response to what you received here today, I invite you to respond with an offering called the Altar of Resonance and Response. It's just a flow of reciprocity that I like to offer in my work and my videos. So if you felt activated, if you felt called out and maybe even expanded by the words I said today, then that is also linked down below. Anyways, thank you for coming and watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel to be notified when I post next. I post regularly, so if you want to hear more of my words, just click the link, the subscription button down below, and the bell. Anyways, I thank you for watching and stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.